So you're traveling to Punta Cana for the first time, or maybe you just haven't been there in a while. Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know before going to Punta Cana. And if you're new to our channel, 3 Days and Tres Noches brings you honest, to the point travel reviews, information, and tips about the destinations that we go to. So please like and subscribe so we can keep the content coming. Number one, let's talk about the entry requirements that are required to enter the Dominican Republic from the United States. So if you are traveling from any place else, you should definitely do some extra research, since I only have experience from coming from the United States. But in general, Dominican Republic is a very easy country to get into, and there's minimum requirements. The first entry requirement is pretty obvious, and that is your passport. So if you have not gotten a passport yet, that is the very first thing I would do, even before booking any type of resort or flights, because sometimes those passports can take 6 months or even longer to come in. And if you're not sure how to get a passport, then my recommendation would be to go to the website of your local United States Post Office, which is one of a few places where you can apply for a passport, and it's going to list all of the documents that you need. It's going to have the application right online, and you can make an appointment right through the website to get your passport. It's also a great time to check the expiration date of your passport. You should always have a passport that is valid for at least 6 months before expiring. And even though the Dominican Republic does not require this to enter, many other countries do. So it's just a good practice to get into. The second entry requirement is the e-ticket that you fill out online. So once you get your flight information, you can follow the link. I will put it in the description below. It's completely free to fill out all of the information. It's just basic information about you and your family, and you do have to fill one out for every single person. So you can have just one account, but each person has to have their own entry. And I'm happy to report that you no longer need proof of COVID vaccination or a COVID test to enter the Dominican Republic. Number two is about where to stay when you are visiting the Dominican Republic. Now, I always tell people, if it's your first time traveling to a tourist country like Dominican Republic, Punta Cana, Jamaica, that are known for their all-inclusive resorts, then I would definitely go for the all-inclusive resort experience for your first time. Now, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this and put it in the comments that there are better ways to experience the Dominican Republic, and there are, especially like the Airbnbs that are more affordable. But if you're traveling solo or, with a couple and it's your first time, it just takes a lot of the guesswork out, and it's a lot less stressful. Now, if you're traveling with a bigger group, like a bachelorette party or a wedding party, you're going to have somebody that's kind of planning all the details anyway, so it's a little bit of a different story. But no matter which route you choose, make sure you read those reviews and you do your research, because especially for the all-inclusive resort experience, it is not created equally. And just because TripAdvisor says it's a 4 or a 4.5 does not mean it is going to be a good experience for you. In fact, I do an entire video about how to kind of narrow down the resorts, because there's so many different options out there, by just listing some of your priorities. And of course, you could also always go through a travel agent. We are not travel agents, but we can recommend one to you if you'd rather go through that route. And number three, you actually want to do before booking anything, and that is checking the flight options from the airport that you fly out of. Because unlike Cancun, Punta Cana does not have as many nonstop flights. And so we have met people on our trips to the Dominican Republic that said they love going there, but it's just harder to get there because they don't have the nonstop flight option. I'm not saying don't go to Punta Cana if you can't find a nonstop flight, but what I'm saying is that make sure you know how long it's going to take you to get there, so you know how many travel days you have to build in to your itinerary. Which leads me to the fourth tip, which is what are the best months to visit and vacation in Punta Cana? In terms of weather, the ideal time to visit would be December through April. But you have to remember, this is a Caribbean island. So even if you go during those months, you could have rain every single day because it is a tropical climate. I personally would stay away from the hurricane season months, which is usually August through November, just because it can be very rainy, and then also always the threat of a hurricane. Of course, the holidays are always a very high volume traffic time, but specifically to the Dominican Republic, Holy Week is a very, very busy time, which is around Easter, because not only does it attract people from outside the country, but many people within the country are traveling to Punta Cana to celebrate this holiday. So by now, maybe you've booked your flight and your resort, and now it's time to pack. So number 5, the tip is do not overpack. I totally get it. It's your first time going to Punta Cana. Maybe it's your first time going to a Caribbean island ever, and you're really excited about packing new outfits. One of the biggest things I have learned through my many travels is to pack everything into a carry-on luggage and not to check in a bag. And here's the real reason why I never check in a bag. It has to do with the airlines, and we know that there's been a lot of craziness going on with the airlines, and it has settled down some, but there is always the possibility that your flight could get canceled, whether it's weather delays or whatever the case may be. And if you have a bag that is checked in, it can take hours, sometimes even days, to get that luggage back, depending on what the situation is. But yet another reason is when you arrive to Punta Cana, because then you have to wait even longer for your checked-in luggage to come through the carousel, and sometimes that can take up to an extra hour. And I know this may not work for everyone, because whenever I say this, I get comments saying that the airline that they use does not allow carry-ons, or maybe they're staying for an extended period of time, or whatever the situation may be. So there's always exceptions. My point is that if you can avoid checking in a bag, I'm telling you, it's going to make your trip so much easier. And even if you have to pay for a carry-on, I would personally do it because it saves you so much time. And if you need some packing tips, I do 2 videos about this and show you how you can pack a carry-on for a 5 to 7 night stay at a resort. Number 6 is about the Punta Cana airport, and I do an entire video about this, so make sure you watch it because there are really important tips in there. But the most important one, I think, is that you arrange transportation before arriving to the airport. Now, sometimes the resort will provide this for free or arrange it for a fee. But either way, whether you're staying in a resort, an Airbnb, whatever it is, you want to make sure that it is set up before you arrive. Now, one tip I will say about the free transportation that the resort provides is that it's usually shared transportation. So that means you have to wait for other guests to arrive from their destinations before leaving the airport for the resort. And that can add sometimes an hour, even more, onto your trip. So that's why we always pay for private transportation. It costs a little bit more, but it gets us to the resort quicker. And we only travel usually for three days and 3 noches, so we want to get to the resort as soon as possible. And this last time in Punta Cana, we used Diamond transfers, and they were amazing. In fact, we love them so much. We asked them about a partnership, so we became partners, and I will put the link in the description below if you want to book with them. And again, make sure you watch that Punta Cana airport video that I put together because it has a ton of information and tips that you definitely need to know before arriving to Punta Cana. Number 7 is whether or not you should exchange your US dollars into the Dominican pesos. So the US dollar is very strong in the Dominican Republic and widely accepted. So there's really no need to exchange. Now, some people really want to. They feel like they are going to get better deals or whatever it is. And we have found, at least in Mexico and the Dominican Republic, that as long as you know the exchange rate, it's really the same. Now, if you're coming from another country other than the US, then you may have to exchange your currency into Dominican pesos. You can do that at the airport, but that usually has the highest exchange rate. So I would do some research on your own to see what the best way is to do that. And since we are on the subject of money, let's go to number 8, which is all about tipping and whether or not you should tip the workers at an all-inclusive resort. Now, whenever I bring up tipping, it stirs up a lot of controversy in the comment section, a lot of different viewpoints, which I completely respect. And I know that some cultures don't tip. But I do come from the US, and we do have a tipping culture, and so does the Dominican Republic. And often the workers are given a very low wage, and they do rely on tips as part of their wage. And really, my theory has always been when traveling is if I'm going to go to another country, I want to respect their culture and their practices as much as I can, just like I would hope that someone would do that if they were coming into the US. So it doesn't take a lot to show appreciation. Like I said, the US dollar is very strong. So even when you're ordering a drink, $1, when you're going to the dinners, like $3 to $5, they're going to love whatever they get. So I do a whole video about tipping with some more suggestions. We definitely tend to be generous tippers in that area because we like to bless people and we just feel that you really get what you give. On average, I would say around $20 to $50 per day. Again, depending on what you're doing. If you're going to be going on an excursion, you definitely want to tip the guys that are working on the excursion, maybe a little bit more. And it's really not that big a deal to carry the cash around. I know some people mention that as well. They're an all-inclusive. They want to carry the money around. But you could also carry around bigger bills. And if you're going to have the same employee, you could tip them $5 or $10 and say this is for the day, something along those lines. But I'm telling you, it will go a long way and it'll be very appreciated. Number 9 is, do you need to speak Spanish to go to Punta Cana? And basically the answer is no. You can definitely get by on English. And if someone doesn't speak English, there's someone around them that can help translate. But I always say it's a great idea to learn the basics. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there, different ways to use basic conversational Spanish when you're traveling. And I love seeing how the people of the Dominican Republic get when you do speak Spanish, even if it's just a little bit, because it shows that you're grateful to be in their country, you're excited to be in their country, and so they're excited as well, and it just creates a really happy, positive vibe. It actually just sparked an idea for a video. If you would be interested in a beginner's guide to travel Spanish, then let me know in the comments below because I do speak Spanish. And so that could be a great video. It might help you, especially for people that don't know any Spanish, to get by when you're traveling. Number 10, stick with me. I'm almost done. If you watch my videos, you know I give as much detail as possible. And if this is your first time going to Punta Cana, I need to tell you everything that you need to know. So number 10 is, don't forget that you are going to be on island time. So that means it's going to take a little bit longer for your drinks and food and just service in general, because they are on a much slower pace in Punta Cana than they are, let's say, where I live in the Northeast. So sometimes you might find yourself frustrated, or you want to see like, why is it taking so long? But just remember to relax with the people in the Dominican Republic. You're on vacation and enjoy that island time. Number 11 is about the beaches. And just because you are going to a Caribbean island, everyone expects that they are going to have an amazing beach experience. But it's not always the case. And there are certain times in Punta Cana where there is a lot of seaweed, or there's certain areas where the beaches are not swimmable. So it's important that you do your research ahead of time if the beach experience is really important to you. So usually the months of May through, I would say, September, the beaches tend to get a lot of seaweed, and it's getting worse every single year during those summer months. So try to stay within the ideal travel time, and if you can't, just know that going into it. And also, depending on where you're staying on the island, sometimes the water is calm, sometimes there's a lot of waves. So if the beach experience is really important to you and you're looking for a particular beach experience, just make sure you do your research ahead of time. You can usually find all of that out on the TripAdvisor reviews. Number 12 is to bring some insulated mugs, or purchase some when you get there if you don't have room in your bag because you decided to not check it in, because these are going to keep your drinks cold. It is a hot and humid climate, and so your drinks melt very quickly, the ice melts very quickly, and the insulated mugs are lifesavers. And there's definitely other things that you need to pack that you're not going to think of, so check out the packing video that I did. I will put the link in the description below because it goes over bug spray, so many different things, and you will thank me for it later. And finally, number 13, lucky number 13, is don't be afraid to go off the resort and explore this beautiful country. And I know the media and other sources will scare you from doing so, but there are so many safe ways to explore the Dominican Republic. It's so beautiful, and you don't want to miss out on this chance. You can book it through the resort. There's guided tours, group tours, and in the description, I will put the link to viator.com, which is the excursion company that we're partners with and that we use to book most of our excursions. But there's one thing that you have to do if you have time while you are in Punta Cana, and that is visit Sauna Island. And yes, of course, I do a whole video about our excursion to Sauna Island, so definitely check that out. Now, this is a full day excursion. I'm talking probably at least 10 hours, but it is so worth it. You won't believe the clear blue water. It's just something unlike I have ever seen. I hope you found this video about Punta Cana for first timers helpful. And if you did, please like and subscribe to our channel. And we do answer all comments and questions. So if you have some more questions, drop them in the comment section below. Or maybe you've been to Punta Cana and you have something you can add. Please add those tips in the comment section below, because I know that I didn't get to everything. I just highlighted the most important things that you need to know before going to Punta Cana. And please keep following us at 3 Days and Tres Noches. And you can find us on Instagram and TikTok as well. And we do have quite a few more trips planned for the rest of the year, some exciting things coming up. And we're going to keep bringing you those honest reviews, travel tips, and information about the destinations that we go to.